Welcome, people, to this exciting edition of The Game Changer. It is I, your host, the Phantom of the Podcast. I don't know why I'm giving him like a Dracula accent. That's not until next month. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this musical rendition of The Game Changer. Don't expect any songs to be sung by either one of us, but it's going to be a fun time guaranteed. I am Nate the Effing Great, being joined here by the Christine Daae to my Phantom of the Opera, this being the one and only VicTori Belle. Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, I kind of thought that's what we were going to do the whole time. We were going to sing about musicals. So I had vocal warm-up this morning. And I'm a little disappointed, but I bet everybody's excited that they don't get to hear it.
I can just imagine, like, Rob and your sister just being like, oh, we were so looking forward to hearing your voices and singing and all this. Like, yeah, you know, we don't want to make this a consistent thing. Just, we're saving it for something big.
Right, like, we sing for, money. Like, we can't just sing all the time. Like.
We sing for money. Oh, man, if only that was the case. But, yeah, we're talking musicals today, ladies and gentlemen, because of the fact that, really, when it comes to life, you can't really enjoy it unless you've gone and seen a lot of musical. We're going to be talking about film adaptations as well as stage adaptations, because both of us have had experience with both. So it was one of those no-brainers where it's like, we got to start talking about this. So let's just dive right into it. All right. So, Miss VicTori Belle Daae, what do you have for us on tap? What's the first thing you got for us to discuss?
One of my all-time favorites, and, it's kind of where I live, All That Jazz from Chicago. Like, I love Chicago, the musical. I've definitely seen it performed a few different ways and a few different stage adaptations of it. Even here in Chicago, I've seen it.
Ironic.
I know, right? Like, of course they have Chicago. The Chicago itself, the city, is really big on theater and really big on being able to perform theater in a way that Broadway is comparable to Broadway and comparable to New York. So we really hold that dear and near to our hearts. So having a musical all about us and all about all that jazz and what we do is just amazing, and it's so catchy, and I love everything about it. Like, it's set in the 1920s, the flapper era and females going to prison for the first time before Orange was the New Black. Like, it's just amazing. Like, obviously, you've definitely seen Chicago, right?
I sadly have not. When you sent me your list of what I know. When you sent me your list of what musicals we were going to be discussing on your end, first thing I saw was Chicago. I'm like, oh crap, I'm not going to have anything to add on to this. But I definitely have heard a lot of the different takes that people have put into it. A lot of the different I think costumes and you mentioned a lot of like the flappers and stuff like that, a little more risque than what people are used to. But you know something, that's not always a bad thing.
It is. Oh, it's for sure like this olden, set it in the 1920s era basically, and it's sexy, it's raunchy, it's murder and killing people and getting away with it. Like that's kind of what Chicago is all about in that time, and that's what they were all about. It follows Roxy Hart on her journey of killing one of her lovers and then having to go to jail and trying to hire the best lawyer in town to just get her off. And they're all sent to this, women's prison where they're on death row and no one ever dies, though everybody gets off, or somehow people get out. Like while you're there, like somebody dies, so it gets real, and it's just about prison and trying to get off it, and like her husband who really is devoted and loves her, but she's like forget about him. Everybody knows the music. I mean, if you don't know all that jazz, like that is like wow, spirit things, yes, jazz. I mean, that's like the most, I think, iconic song. Cell Block Tango is a big one. Queen Latifah in the movie gets to really have her moment, and in this. I noticed a lot of the stars kind of will show up continuously that throughout this discussion, because Queen Latifah's in a few of the ones that I love. Catherine Zeta-Jones is one of the starlets. She sings all that jazz. And then Renee Zellweger was Roxy Hart. And John C. Reilly was in this. Also the guy in Pretty Woman, I forget, Richard Greer?
I think it's Richard Greer. That sounds right.
Yeah, so it was just, it's an amazing production. It won a lot of awards. It deserves the awards it won. It's just always fun to hear the jazzy music of Chicago, and it really pulls it apart from other musicals because of how much it really just focuses on this era and this tonality of music.
Oh, jeez. I mean, how do I even compete with that? I mean, it's a little bit, raunchy, sexy, stuff like that. Oh, gosh, I'm going into a family film. This is like the horrible segue for me to even talk about. But something, I got nothing that can maybe top that. I'm going to start my list off with The Sound of Music. Now, a lot of people might know this one. It's one that I've gotten a chance to see in a stage performance-wise, as well as the actual movie itself. I think I watched it... I think it might have been this year I watched it for the first time ever. I just remember there were a lot of marathons that would have, Julie Andrews in it, and one of them would be Mary Poppins, and then would be always followed up by The Sound of Music. And I never actually took the chance to sit down and actually watch it until a few months ago when I finally got the chance to watch it. Basically, the story is pretty simple. It's about a nun who goes to take care of a family, and then she kind of becomes more than just a kind of housekeeper is where she was kind of for a while, but she actually becomes now a member of that family, and that's kind of what she wants. She wants to be something bigger in the world than just be a nun. And from there, it goes from like really bright and colorful to just very dark, because then they decide to incorporate the Nazi invasion and how basically they're just bossing everybody around and just making everything miserable and dreary. And finally, the Von Trapp family makes their way out to freedom. Just, you mentioned a lot of the songs in Chicago. A lot of people remember the songs from Sound of Music. The Hills Are Alive with the Sound of Music.
Yep.
Also, they had the Do Re Mi song, where a lot of kids and music directors will definitely point to that. Oh gosh, I'm trying to remember.
They have the Good Morning.
Yes, that's right.
I thought you should have started with that.
I should have.
Sung Good Morning to everyone.
I should have. Damn it! Oh man, I'm failing as a host. No, I'm not. It's just a bad choice. But yeah, a lot of the other songs in here, including 15 going on 16. Another great. It actually has like a little mini love story that's involved in there. So it actually does have almost like elements of everything, where you have conflicts, you have love, you have everything. And it was kind of one of those things where it does fit Julie Andrews' character to a T, because she's basically playing like a mother figure. She does that in Mary Poppins, she does that in Princess Diaries, and she does that even in Shrek 2 and Shrek 3. I mean, you can't really deny that. Even though she was doing voice acting, she was still a part of it, and she was still kind of like the motherly deal. But yeah, definitely one of Julie Andrews' greatest performances is indeed Sound of Music, and it's an absolutely wonderful play. If you haven't gotten a chance to see it, go watch it, either on DVD, VHS, Blu-ray, even on stage. It's absolutely amazing, even though it's not the same amount of characters. I've seen it where there's a very minuscule stage, and literally there's, like a crowd around it. The stage is just basically like a circle, that's it. And it was still a really damn good performance. So it's been, known for years and years. Absolutely wonderful, and definitely highly recommended. But all right, so do you got your? Yep, you're good. Do you got your? Do you have your penny for your thoughts? What are your thoughts on Sound of Music?
Yeah, no, I don't know if I've ever sat down and watched The Sound of Music from start to finish, but I've obviously seen a lot of the main parts and the music videos of the portions where the songs were getting played. She's running through the hills, spinning, and when they're escaping in the car from the Nazis. It's great, and it's a classic. And like you said, everybody kind of knows all these songs. And even if you don't realize, oh, that's from The Sound of Music, like, I've definitely heard people sing this, or I've sung this in music class or something. And everybody knows that they're classics, they're great, and they'll probably live forever. So it's definitely a good a good musical to choose.
Oh, gosh. Yes. But all right, the ball's in your court, so serving it up, what do you got?
We'll stick with some of the classics. The Phantom of the Opera, when you started with the starting song. The Phantom of the Opera is, it's kind of like the Beauty and the Beast of musicals, but just the dark version where the Beast is actually kind of just a really creepy guy. And I always think it's interesting when people are like, oh, but the Phantom, the Phantom. Like, this guy's a murderer and crazy. Be careful. Don't fall in love with that. He's a psycho. But no, it's a great, the Phantom of the Opera, especially the movie that came out. I don't remember exact date when it came out. But I think a lot of people will be surprised that Gerald Butler was the Phantom singing.
That blew my mind away. That when I saw that in the credits, it's like, Gerard Butler. What? The guy who was in 300? You're kidding me. No.
The guy who does all the rom-com movies now, and Goofy. Is he? Oh, he's Australian, right?
But I believe so.
Or he's Irish.
Something like that.
I don't know if that is like that. Is that even comparable? He's one or the other. I don't want to really look up anything on my computer because it's kind of ruining my internet connection. So sorry that I'm not checking my sources. But yeah, I always thought that was really fun, like getting to see him doing musicals. There's a lot of action heroes, again, we're going to get into, that have a great singing voice. But no, this is a classic opera that the songs are extremely notable, like the Phantom of the Opera is not inside your mind. Like, whoa. But yeah, I think it's one of those that everybody really loves, everybody can appreciate. I don't think it's a musical for everyone, though. I think sometimes it's a little bit too much of a musical for the common folk who don't appreciate what the songs can do and how amazing the singers are. Like, Christine's voice in every production I've seen is just phenomenal. And it's one of those, like, it's a stage within a stage. Like, it's supposed to really put the audience in the feel of the play, because you're supposed to kind of be like, the Phantom is throughout our theater right now. And I think that's one of the things that makes it unique, that it's like, okay, if you go to see this in a stage and in a theater, like, you're going to get a different feel than what the movie did. But the movie was beautiful. All the costuming, the songs, and of course the moments with the Phantom make you really second guess yourself of, is this guy okay or is this guy not okay? And a lot of people kind of fall for the Phantom, even though he is very insane and crazy and a murderer and a guy who lives in the rafters of a theater house. I know you love this one. I know you love this one.
For a long time, this was probably my number one favorite musical of all time, except for one that I'm definitely going to be going down further in the list. But one of the reasons why it was so amazing, and definitely this is going to be a name that you're going to be hearing a lot during this podcast, Andrew Lloyd Webber is phenomenal when it comes to writing music, playing these songs, creating a lot of these things that not only tell, from the character's perspective what they're feeling, but it also gets your emotions involved in what as well. With Phantom of the Opera, I was very surprised on how well it kind of captivated that, because you definitely mentioned it on the head that, it's kind of one of those things where you see the Phantom as this kind of grueling, murderous, kind of mysterious creep, but in the end you also see that even those kind of creeps can, be given love and be given forgiveness from from anybody. And in this case, it was by Christine. But this was one of those movies that I was very surprised that it got a sequel, Love Never Dies. This,
I didn't even know about that.
I guess it was very popular enough to where they just said, you know what, we're going to try and do a sequel. It was one of those things where it's like, you know, I can kind of take it or leave it. It's like, not one of those things where it's like, oh, I really needed a sequel to this, but it does kind of tell a story. It's kind of like an in-between deal from like the events that happened during Phantom of the Opera and basically what happened at the end of the movie, which, spoiler alert, Christine dies, and some people are kind of curious, you know, what happened to her? Did she, like, you know, die of a broken heart? Did she die of blah, blah, blah? That's kind of where Love Never Dies kind of falls in. It kind of explains what happens. How did, you know, Christine end up dying? Was there maybe problems with Raoul and Christine? Do Christine and the Phantom ever kind of, you know, get back together? It's one of those musicals that does an absolutely amazing job of doing that. And I will say this, that the only DVD rendition of it is an actual theater performance of it that took place in Australia, I want to say. I'm trying to remember exactly where it was. But it was one of those things where, and this kind of hits another point where it would be awesome if they could do this more, especially with live TV, where they would actually have play production still broadcasted on television. That'd be really great. I mean, they recently did that with The Sound of Music with Carrie Underwood, so it's kind of one of those things where like, man, it'd be really cool to just see that. So that's kind of the feel you get when you watch Love Never Dies. But the songs in that movie are just as good, and they definitely do kind of make you realize, okay, so there's a little more to this, and you kind of really see some more layers being added on to the relationship between Christine and the Phantom. So
cool.
It's really good. Definitely, I would recommend people watching it. Is it like an instant classic? No, but it's definitely one of those things that if you love Phantom of the Opera, you would definitely like. Love Never Dies. Is it the best sequel? Not exactly, but again, if you're a big fan of Andrew Lloyd Webber, I would definitely recommend this to anyone. Speaking of which, let's go into the next one that I got, and that is Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, which tells the tale of Joseph. Basically, you know, him going through his deal where he has all these dreams. He gets an amazing dream coat. He gets sold by his brothers. He gets put into slavery. He ends up being the savior of his people. I've had the chance to actually be a part of that show on 2 occasions, and it's always been a lot of fun. And the music is always a lot of fun to sing along with. They always have different kind of deals, different themes with a lot of the music. Some of it is, you know, kind of classical. Some of it can be a little bit upbeatish. There's one where one of the brothers has a song where he's singing a little country western lag, and it's a lot of fun. Then there's just a lot of, you know, kind of hip-hop-ish a little bit. And then you get to Pharaoh, who does a Elvis impersonation, and it gets to be really wild, really crazy, but also a lot of fun. And again, shows you the genius and the brilliance of Andrew Lloyd Webber. Basically, he's just saying, you know what? They know the story of it. Let's just incorporate some of the music that, you know, people are familiar with into the show. And he does a fantastic job of doing that. And the main way that I got introduced to this was watching the movie with Donny Osmond, who played I think he was the second Joseph in the Broadway version, because I think they had one Joseph before him, and then that's when he got brought in. And Donny Osmond, my God, he did a fantastic job. He can play the emotions. He can just sing right. Just, damn, is what I could say.
He's really good.
It's a wonderful musical, and it's definitely loved by all. And a lot of people definitely watch it, and they're just like, "Oh, it's a really good show, really good show." Some people complain the fact that, "Oh, well, the problem is it doesn't really reflect on religious belief." Yes, that is true, but it's one of those things that I can let slide by, because if they did that with every single musical, people would not go to musicals anymore. So it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, it doesn't involve God, but at the same time, it's one of those things where it's like, hey, this is my interpretation of it. It's like, I'll respect that. That's fine by me. I'm not going to, bag on it just because of one teeny tiny little thing. But have you gotten the chance to see Joseph by chance?
You know what? I think I saw a cartoon version of it once.
Oh, really?
but no, I have not seen the big Broadway musical portion. So I've never been. I kind of thought it was super religious, so I didn't know if I would be interested in it or not. But cool. I'm glad it was good. I think that sounds really fun. I like when musicals really jump around in their genres and stuff. Makes for, I think, better songs, so that you don't have to just stick with one, even though I love jazz with the Chicago theme, but that's really interesting. I don't really know the story that well, but it sounds fun. If it's a musical, a movie, I could possibly see it. Yeah, who knows? I might eventually go see it.
Yeah, like I said, it's definitely worth watching. Actually, it's one of those movies that as soon as you watch it once, it's kind of like, I kind of want to watch it again just to kind of see what everything, kind of looks like. It's really good. So
cool.
All right, so batter up. What do you got?
My next one that I think I would like to bring out is another one with Miss Queen Latifah. I really enjoyed this production. I've seen it live, and I've seen it live on TV, and then I've also watched the movie. And it's Hairspray. Hairspray is, Good Morning Baltimore. All that fun stuff set in the 60s during the Civil Rights Movement, and it really gives you kind of the mix of what music was like, and it shows you on the other side of the railroad tracks, like the black community, and then what the white community was about, what was allowed on TV at that time, and what was not allowed on TV. And then it also gives a sense of a person with a different body type, who this main character is a heavier set girl, and she's always wanted to be on TV, always wanted to be dance and show off how good she is at singing and dancing, but the fact that she was bigger, they just wouldn't have that. And I think a really pivotal thing in Hairspray that is common in almost every performance is that her mother is also a bigger woman, but they always cast the mother as a man. In the production that is kind of well known, the movie was John Travolta. He was cast. There's also been a few, I forget, a really whiny guy they always just play themselves, really. They don't really change their voice too much. John Travolta, I think, did a little more than usual, but I think it's really fun. In most of the productions you see on Broadway, it's just the guys talking, hey, I'm your mom, and stuff, and all the characters just go with it, because that's what they want. That's what Hairspray wants, is to be kind of shocking and stuff. And this lady is in love, and she's never gotten out of her comfort zone, and she kind of has sheltered her daughter, and for her daughter wanting to get out of the comfort zone, it's inspiring to the mom. But yeah, Hairspray is about a time where people did just use a ton of hairspray. Goodbye, ozone layer. But it's really focused on a TV show and how these people revolve their lives around I think it's the Harry something show, or I forget what the name of the show is, but it's one of those dance shows where it's oh, we're the nicest kids in town, and all these kids go to the high school, and they're the popular kids, and you just get to see how they interact with the other people, and how this TV show really revolves around their lives, and being able to transform and change this TV show could then affect the rights and the laws of the town, and that's what they try to do. And Queen Latifah's in it. Zac Efron's in it. I forget the main girl. I haven't seen her in a lot of stuff after this, but it was kind of her big breakout role. Like I said, John Travolta's in it. What's his face? Guy we always he was in the Jungle Book.
Christopher Walken.
Thank you. Yes, Christopher Walken's in it. Just a lot of people. Amanda Bynes was in it. But yeah, it's great. I love all the music. I remember just like downloading the whole soundtrack after I saw it. And Zac Efron does sing in this. I know it was a big deal to people. Like, he can sing, because we had a big shock that, in high school he didn't sing. But he can sing, and we probably will hear his name again come up in this podcast. But yeah, Hairspray is really fun, and it's that, the jazzy jive music that you kind of want to, dance to, and it's really, really cool to see the two type of cultures come together at the end as well, and just like a civil rights movement. So it's great. Way more than Hairspray.
Yeah, it's kind of insane. As I looked at like the cast list, I was looking at the names. In addition to the ones that you mentioned, Michelle Pfeiffer is involved in this. Brittany Snow is in this. Academy Award winner Allison Janney is involved in this as well. Which
yes, I forgot that she was the mom of Amanda Bynes.
Yeah, I literally looked at a lot of these names, and I'm like, holy cow. And even Jerry Stiller, I remember recognizing that name, and I'm like, oh my gosh, they got Arthur from King of Queens involved in this. That is awesome.
It's great. It's a great movie. If you've never seen it, it's definitely worth it. It's a musical of all musicals type of thing. It's catchy, it's ridiculous, and the production value, like all of a sudden everybody knows the dances. Like, it's great. If you enjoy musicals, you'll enjoy Hairspray, and seeing it live is always great too. And I know, I think it's NBC who started doing all that, like putting like musicals around the holiday on live. I think it's cool that they do that. I don't always think it gives the production the best value, because TV people are used to what TV is, and they're like, wait, why did that not go right? Well, it's live. Like, it's going to happen. It's not going to sound as good. But yeah, I think it's always been great, and it's fun.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, I'm just going to name a couple of the songs, and then we'll move on from there. Because I remember a lot of these songs listening to them on my iPhone, because I got the chance to purchase the Hairspray soundtrack, and it's the original Broadway version. So, mentioned Good Morning Baltimore. It Takes Two was involved. I'd see here, what was a Nice Kid in Town. I'm trying to think here. Oh, instant classic. I Can Hear the Bells. I've heard that song so many times that it's almost ridiculous.
And You Can't Stop the Beat is probably, I know I've been saying my favorite songs are the songs that most people know. I mean, Good Morning Baltimore is very popular, but no one really knows the rest of it. They know the Good Morning Baltimore part, but the You Can't Stop the Beat is kind of like pivotal moment of the whole musical, and everybody gets to sing in that one, and that's kind of what I think any audience in Broadway or any audience in the musical is waiting for, that number that brings all their favorite characters in, and that's the number that everybody loves.
Definitely. We talk about, big Broadway numbers. One that I definitely cannot deny, which is absolutely a great one, is Oliver. A lot of people know it as either Oliver Twist or the Disney adaptation, Oliver and Company. Okay, maybe we'll just take that one out, because that does not really accurately work. But Oliver is a story about an orphan who basically is going on a bit of an adventure. He starts in an orphanage, and then he works for an undertaker, and then he works for like this little group of pickpocketers, and then he goes on to find his true family. It's just an absolutely wild and crazy ride, and I would know because I was in this production as well. I always give one of my directors a hard time about this, because it's a true story. I played the role of Noah Claypole, which is basically the guy who gets beaten by Oliver for insulting his mother because she's dead and making insults about her and blah blah blah. So there's a scene where the Oliver basically kicks my butt, and and literally for a long time the director just kept saying, like, after every take, it's like, you're doing good, but I need you to hit him harder. And he's just wailing away on my back just doing this. And I was like, my back's going to be broken before we even get to the performance. Just cut me some slack, dude. but no, it was one of those things where, it's like, small over-exaggeration. Did hurt a little bit, but, it's show business. What do you expect? The story itself is absolutely wonderful. And, some of the songs that are in there, Consider Yourself, the opening song of Food, Glorious Food. A lot of really ones. Fagin has some pretty good songs in there as well. Like the Got to Pick a Pocket or Two, as well as... Oh, jeez, I'm trying to remember the title of this one. But basically, Reviewing the Situation, which is an absolutely brilliant song where he's basically conflicting between the fact of, should I stay with where I'm at right now or should I go out and basically try and make a better life for myself. He considers, a wife, he considers getting a job, he considers getting a lot of money, and then he's kind of looking at like the ups and downs from that. It's a really good song. And then there's, of course, Nancy's song of As Long as He Needs Me, where she's contemplating, do I stay with my abusive boyfriend, Bill Sykes, or do I, leave him? And it's one of those kind of heart-wrenching songs where you're basically feeling the emotions that she's going through. It's like she's either thinking, I want to leave him, but at the same time, I have so much love for him that I can't. And that's just always one of those things that I think sticks out to a lot of people, is that there are relationships that are sadly like that. But this is a very hard-hitting show, so much so that at the 41st Academy Awards, it actually won Best Picture. It's one of those very powerful movies, I will say, as well as a very powerful Broadway hit. So to watch this and just to watch, Oliver basically go from all these adventures, and then in the end, it's kind of like a nice, happy little ending. It's very well done. All the songs are great. The casting is very well done. Just wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. And, in the end, we get just another great, musical to chalk up into the wonderful musical section. So
I have never seen that. I've never seen Oliver, and in general, I don't think I even knew that the movie or Oliver and Company was based on a different Oliver.
Well, now you know.
Yeah, so I have been educated this morning, but yes, I've never seen it. All those songs that you mentioned, have no idea about them. So I'm like, oh, okay, something to look into.
Yeah, but like I said, it's just very well done, and for it to get an Academy Award, that says a lot. I mean, you definitely look at it like how the camera work and how all of the stage deals looked back then, compare them to now. Does it hold up? Actually, I think it does. I mean, it's one of those shows that, like I said, has great musical numbers. The storyline is easy to follow. Characters are very easy to either like or dislike. It's kind of a player's choice, really, but it's just very well done. So hopefully, you get a chance to watch it. I know that after this, there's going to be a lot of musicals on me thinking, like, I need to see this, or there's one that's going to stand up where it's like, oh my gosh, I've wanted to see this for so long, but I haven't made the time to watch it. It's awesome. I think one of yours on your list definitely is one of those ones where I'm just like, oh, I'm kicking my own butt because I've been wanting to see this movie for a while. It looks awesome, but it might be the next one for all I know. So what's up to bat?
Well, I bet you've seen the next one I'm going to talk about. This is, I think everybody I think has seen this movie. Grease.
Nope, that's one I've seen. Yep. Grease Lightning.
Yes. Everybody knows this is a go-to, like, let's karaoke these duets type of musical. Everybody knows Olivia Newton-John, John Travolta, kind of really taken off their careers in this. I think it was produced in the 80s, either late 70s, early 80s. Again, I'm not going to look it up because my internet will then not work. But yeah, everybody knows, Grease Lightning. I'm like blanking on some of it, but it's, the new girl comes to the school and innocent and lovely, and all the greasers are kind of hanging out, and that's kind of, the cool kids. We do bad stuff sometimes. We smoke cigarettes, and, the pink ladies, and Rizzo and her gang of girls who hang out with the other cool guys, and they drive nice cars, and they listen to the good music, and they wear the cool stuff. We don't wear skirts and dresses. We wear pants now because we're cool girls. But it's great. It's just one of those that, they high school romance musical that is nobody's in high school when they play this musical. Everybody's like 30. That was the time back then. Like, let's cast the 30-year-olds to be the 15-year-olds. Like, good idea, yeah. But yeah, you get to just, like, John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John. It was just amazing. They are both amazing singers. Like I said, I've already mentioned John Travolta in a few things. And I think everybody just knows, like, the beauty school dropout. Like, oh, go back to high school. Like, everybody should just go back to high school. What else? You're the One That I Want. That's a huge one that everybody, like, the ending number, Hand Jive, Summer Nights. Everybody loves Summer Nights.
I was literally going to say, if you do not say Summer Nights, you might just lose credibility.
What summer is compared to what the school year is. Oh, summer's just so much better, so romantic, and it's just great. And you get to see, like, a little bit of the gangs of that time, kind of how school was, and the smoking the cigarettes and the drinking, and how everybody did it, and how Sandra Dee is just not like that. She's just a good girl. Why is she even here? Why does Danny like her? Like, what is this? Like, we race cars. We know where we are in life. This is what our life is that we steal things, we smoke cigarettes, and we try to make our cars the coolest. And I feel like, that was the time, and the music is just classics that everybody loves and everybody thinks they can sing, Like, I feel like I could sing that song really good, and I can't. But, it's been performed, and this is another musical that have given sequels and different versions of it. But yeah, I don't think I've ever seen Grease 2. I didn't want to. But it's just always performed. People enjoy it. It's a production, and I always love Grease. I think Grease has to be one of those classics that everybody, if you know what a musical is, you think of Grease.
I think it would hands down be, in my opinion, one of the greatest musicals of all time. And I think that what also makes it great is that during this story, you see a little bit of, like, the high school thing kind of wearing off just a little bit, where, John Travolta's character, he slowly makes a choice of, do I either choose to be with Sandy or do I just, live my life still as a greaser? And I think Sandy kind of has, like, the same situation. It's like, do I just accept my boyfriend, for who he is, or do I try to change him? And it's kind of one of those things where you reach the interesting crossroads at the end where it builds up into that final number where it's like, oh, you see, John Travolta, he's got the Letterman's jacket on, and he looks, like, nice and clean. He's all clean cut. And then you see Sandy coming out, wearing, as you say, the pants and wearing, like, the spandex and stuff like that. It's like, well, this is kind of interesting to see the tides kind of, roles kind of switch around. And, of course, like I said, we get into that great musical number of, You're the One That I Want. Yep. It's a very good musical. And, honestly, one of the best that people definitely need to watch. I know that they did, a Grease live, I think it was a few years ago, like you mentioned.
That was another, like, one of those NBC I think it's NBC. I'm almost for sure it's NBC that tries to, like, take these Broadway classics and amazing shows that make a lot of money on Broadway and, like, okay, let's try it on camera, and I think it's always fallen flat. But
well, you just gotta pick the right people. I think that's the problem, is that if you pick the wrong people, then it's just gonna fall flat. But pick the right people.
I always think that the musicals and theater is different. They're always different than TV to me, and they're not going to be performed the same way. Like, you're not going to like belt out on TV the way you belt out in a theater. You just don't have to do that. So I always think it's a little bit of a injustice to put a theatrical performance on the big screen. I think you're taking away from what people like about the theatrical performance.
Right.
And I promise you, if I want to go see it in theaters, I will when it comes. You know, like when it comes to Chicago, I want to. But if you put it on TV to people who don't really know what theater is, they sometimes, wow, like they overacted that, or wow, like that was screaming in my face. When it's like in theater, they have to do that. Like that is your stage directions, are to do ridiculous, more emote type of things, because you're supposed to be on stage where people can't really see your face like that or can't hear your voice like that. So I don't know. I always think they kind of, you take away from the theater performance if you put it on TV. But that's why I like to go to the movie and be like, okay, the movie, they did something totally different. It's not live. They're not performing like it's theater. They're performing like it's a movie. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's ever bad, I guess, to like bring more attention to theater. But I just, again, it's theater for a reason. You're supposed to go see it in a theater and get that full experience.
Fair enough. I think I can argue with that only just a little bit, because I think there's some people that can, belt out like they did in a movie. But again, that's saved for a future movie that I have on tap. But next one that I got on here is another instant classic that I think a lot of people definitely will appreciate, just because of the fact that it is a bit more of a classic one, not too modernized, not too, I guess, crazy, not too hip. That performance being The King and I. This is a movie where basically it does hit a lot of what happened in those earlier days where, guys were basically the macho men and they are the more important people, and women were just kind of in the lower class. And definitely in this one you do see that, where, the King of Siam, he has like, geez Louise, maybe almost like 20 wives or something like that. I can't remember the exact number because it's been so long since I've seen this show, but you definitely do see, you mix all this kind of stuff where, the king is basically getting all that he wants, and the women are just, geezing all over him. And then you have this one woman, Anna, come in, and she is, a little more outspoken. She's not outspoken. She's definitely more stern, a lot more stubborn. She's definitely more of like the independent woman that you would expect nowadays to just, not be pushed over, not be just, taken over by some guy. And you definitely do see the conflict in there. It's absolutely wonderful seeing those moments where you're just like, yes, we're seeing something different here. We're not seeing just the same old, like, oh, yes, king, yes, king. Nope, she has a reason to say no, and she backs it up with whatever facts that she has. And unfortunately for the king, sometimes he doesn't always know that. And that's why I think, one song in particular that stands out in there is the song A Puzzlement, where he's basically contemplating, do I know everything or do I not know everything? What can I really, tell my kid? How can I, teach him to be the next, King of Siam? It's one of those things that's absolutely great. And also, of course, has a little bit of a love story between one of the quote-unquote future wives for the king and ambassador from, Burma, that's right. There's like a little secret forbidden love affair that's involved in there, and it's kind of nice because you take away, you have the conflict over here between the king and Anna, and then you have a little bit of a love connection between these two, and it's like, okay, this is kind of interesting, this is kind of new. And, during the time, and then, over time, we see Anna and the king kind of get close, and it's kind of one of those things where it's like, they want to love each other, but they know that they can't because they're from two separate worlds and two separate societies. It's not like a forbidden kind of love. It's kind of one of those things where it's like, we want to, but we know that we can't because it wouldn't really work out. And you just see that. It's absolutely amazing how they do that. It's a wonderful performance. A lot of great songs involved. Some people might remember Whistle a Happy Tune, where basically Anna's talking to her child about, whenever I get nervous, I just whistle. We get to another songs with, the wives, and we see, Getting to Know You, another song from there where basically...
That's probably, I think, the most popular song that I can think of from the King guy. Getting to know you.
Getting to know all about you. Sorry, we don't get paid to do that. Sorry, Andrew Lloyd Webber. I'm sorry. But no, it's just, again, a really good show. And another show that I've gotten the chance to be a part of, I was neither the king nor I was just some dude with a boat. I'm just going to say that right now. Another really good show.
Yeah, it was funny. I just saw The King and I pop up coming back to theaters, the old, version. And I was like, I have not seen this in so long. I want to see it again. And it's actually on my list to go see again. So I'm really glad you picked that. It's another one of those mixing cultures and how these cultures clash or how these cultures are very similar. They just think they're super different. And just learning from another. So it's definitely a great musical. And that's Getting to Know You is another thing. Hey, we're going to learn about each other instead of just hate each other. So it's a great message and a great musical. Nice choice.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Well, I think you have your last one up. Do you have any honorable mentions before we get into the finals?
I do have some honorable mentions. I have 2 honorable mentions that I wanted to put in. One is Les Miserables, or Les Miserables. Obviously, that's a great one. It was a great production with Mr. Hugh Jackman and Russell Crowe. Not the best, but and Anne Hathaway, where they actually went to not recorded voices, so they didn't do some voiceovers. Instead, they just all sang. And Les Miserables, everybody who goes to see that, I think they need to be prepared that this is a musical of all musicals. They do not talk, they sing, and they sing the whole time. So, we were gonna do that, for the podcast, where we're like, I guess, we don't have to, maybe it'll be distracting to sing the whole time. And it is. It gets to the point where you're like, are they really singing? They're still singing, and yes, they are. So, it is a musical of all musicals. It's one of those that I do think everybody should see, but it is one of those that if you're not committed to musicals, don't go. And then the final honorable mention is more of a classic 80s, 90s hair band, Rock of Ages, really fun. Tom Cruise, Alec Baldwin, Julianne Hough. It's fun. It takes all your favorite 80s bands and just remixes them into a production, and it's a film. I think it's going to be adapted to stage soon, but it's one of those that was a film first.
Very nice. The only honorable mention that I have here was kind of an interesting choice, but it felt like one of those ones that a lot of people, when they talk about musical theater, this is one that definitely does stand out, and that was the production of Cats. Now, the storyline is, it's kind of simple. I mean, literally, it's just a bunch of cats. They're all, kind of roaming about, talking with each other, but it basically boils down to one kitty is going to go to kitty heaven, and it kind of, that's really all the story is. It's just, they talk, and then one kitty basically gets chosen to basically go to kitty heaven, quote unquote. They mentioned they do a couple songs for characters, a couple songs here and there, but it was one of those musicals I just could not overlook. It was so good. The makeup design is absolutely amazing. Costumes are great. Simple design for the set. Songs are absolutely amazing. Just even one song, Memories, just the one song you listen to that, and it's like, yep, I'm hooked.
Yep. I think you just reminded me, because that's a big New York thing to me. I'm like, Rent was also freaking amazing. I don't know why I didn't pick that. Rent. I'm actually kind of upset now that I do not have Rent on my list, because I watched Rent nonstop for a whole year, and I know all the music. But but yeah, we'll do my number one now.
Yep.
Now that I'm disappointed in myself, my number one is going to be, like we said, this is musicals throughout movies too, so it's not just Broadway. And I definitely decided to go with a film that made this musical what it is, and now this year in August 2018, it finally came out on Broadway in New York. It is Moulin Rouge.
No.
Our favorite Mr. Ewan McGregor really showed that he has a voice of a god. Nicole Kidman's in this as well, and this is back in, like, I believe the beginning 1900s type of thing, in French, the French Revolution, where they were trying to really have entertainment be a big part of Paris and France, and everybody was traveling to the Moulin Rouge, where kind of like the play Chicago, it was where you could have sin and do bad things, and people can be praised and have fun, and that's what it's all about, is having fun and doing drugs and sex and dance and just out in the open. And it's the French Revolution. That's what they wanted to do. Let's take drugs. Let's get crazy. And you just get to see them trying to put on, like, the Sound of Music. Like, they're writing, like, the Sound of Music in this movie. And it's just a bunch of misfits putting songs together from classic songs, just kind of like Rock of Ages, with that certain genre of hair bands. They use, like, Elton John songs and, you know, Come What May, Elephant, the Elephant Medley, and it's just beautiful. And their music choices and the way that they decided to slice these songs together to make them a complete new song is great. I think everybody knows, like, Roxanne, you don't have to go, in the prostitute song. And Ewan McGregor went from kind of a nobody to a wow, like, you have a beautiful voice, and I can't wait for you in Beauty and the Beast. But it's a gorgeous song, and it's a gorgeous musical that literally won a bunch of awards. It just highlights, like, this underworld and how it wasn't about love, and how Ewan McGregor's character just wanted to bring love back into the Moulin Rouge and love back into the world. Like, hey, it doesn't always have to be sex, party, and money. Like, we can also love each other. And the main prostitute that he hangs out with, Nicole Kidman's character, just doesn't believe that. And he has to try to make her believe. And, you know, they don't really get to figure out what happens because someone dies. But, I mean, we spoil everything on this show. So, yeah, Nicole Kidman's character has a really bad illness, and she's going to end up dying, and it's just how they deal with it. And they don't really know it. She's trying to hide it so that they can get money and have a production. And he loves her. So,
you mean to tell me that when Ewan McGregor first came out with this movie, I'm definitely going to be looking to see, you know, what year this was, that when they heard his voice for Moulin Rouge, that they would be thinking, you know what, in about 20 some odd years, I'm looking forward to the idea of, 2001. So, in 2001, Ewan McGregor, right, 2001, Ewan McGregor, you mean to tell me that there were people there that were saying, like, I'm hoping that 16 years later, he's in the live reenactment of Beauty and the Beast, and he's Lumiere, and he's going to be absolutely wonderful.
Yep. But no,
Fair
he was
enough.
great. He's great. He's amazing, and he's such a great singer. And now that it's a Broadway show, I'm stoked, and I want to go. It's like Moulin Rouge would be, like, I think, a combo of The Sound of Music, Chicago, Hairspray, like, all those, like, they kind of just took from everything. Like, let's have a little bit of this, let's have a little bit of that, to make this a movement within its own. And it's just awesome. It's fun. And I think on stage live, it's just going to be shiny, bright, and beautiful. And that's what you want out of a theatrical production. So
Hey, fair enough. And this was the one where I was just literally like, I need to watch this movie. And this weekend it was so rough because I had so much going on. So this upcoming next few days that I have off, it's going to be like, yep, that's my goal. I'm going to watch Moulin Rouge. I'm going to enjoy this. And despite the spoilers, it's going to be one of those things where it's like, I don't care. I'm just watching this, seeing how it goes. I want to watch Ian McGregor be awesome, and I want to watch Nicole Kidman just because back then she was like the total package when it came to babehood. And just enjoy it because from the way you describe it, it's one of those things where it's like, I need to watch it now. I need to experience the joy and wonderment that is Moulin Rouge. Will it top my number one? I don't know, but only one way to find out. So, the number one pick, which comes as no surprise, especially to my co-host, I've definitely been ranting and raving about how amazing this movie is, and the fact that people are saying it's going to be turned into a theatrical production, whether it's going to be on Broadway or not, I don't know, but it'll be great. That being The Greatest Showman. God help me, I think I've ranted and raved about this movie so many times that I will only touch base about it because I've talked a lot. So, it tells a story about, how P.T. Barnum came about and how he created the circus. Has a lot of great songs, a lot of wonderful actors involved. Of course, Hugh Jackman's involved. We got Michelle, oh gosh, I'm trying to remember what was
Michelle Williams.
Michelle Williams, thank you very much. Zac Efron, like we mentioned before. It also got me very interested in seeing Zendaya because she was in the Spider-Man Homecoming movie a few months beforehand. Then I see her in this, and I'm just like, oh wow, she's got a really good voice too. Holy cow! If she ends up singing in like one of the future Spider-Man movies, that'll be one of those things where I'm like, I don't know how I feel about this. I feel like I should be mad, but at the same time, this is also Zendaya who just knocked it out of the park in The Greatest Showman. I'm okay with this. But yes, I talked about it long before that I'm still livid at the fact that it did not get an Oscar this past year because as soon as they started singing it, I may have been either, I may have been pretty drunk, but it was still as soon as I heard the music, I was just glued to the TV like, yes, thank you, I'm happy. And then it lost, and I'm just like, damn it.
Did it lose? I thought it won.
No, it lost to Coco.
Oh, yeah.
Because,
the Coco performance wasn't as good, though.
Yeah, well, you win some.
I love that Coco song, don't get me wrong. But, the performance of Miguel or whatever, he did. I was like, that's lame. They could have done it so much better. And the fact that What's-Her-Face from This Is Me or whatnot, they killed it. So I was like, I'm upset.
It was just one of those things where I was almost to the brink of tears, and I think I do recall you just saying, like, I'm with you. I think they should have won. Are you kidding me? That's...
Yeah, I wanted to pick what you picked, but at the same time we were competing, so I'm like, okay, I'll go with the next best thing, which Coco's Remember Me was amazing.
And I still listen to a lot of the stuff from the soundtrack. It's that good of a movie, and even though people have definitely been picking apart, it's like, I don't care. You got a lot of great stuff. Hugh Jackman and Zac Efron doing a duet, that's absolutely amazing. Loved it.
Oh yeah, I loved The Greatest Showman is amazing, and I listen to the soundtrack all the time, and it's just one of those happy it's so great. I love it to death too. So good choice. I knew you were going to pick it. That's why I did it.
It's kind of funny because earlier this morning when you sent me the text just saying oh, here's my list, and I think you mentioned it was Les Mis and Greatest Showman were on your list. And sometimes I always do this deal where I just say you know what, you just pick those. It's fine. I can always pick off something there. This was one of those few times where she literally had me text back. It's you get Les Mis, but I am calling Greatest Showman. This is mine. It's kind of one of those things where I'm like Smeagol or Gollum from Lord of the Rings. No, this is my precious. My precious. My precious.
Yes.
Man.
I agree.
So those are some of our best musicals, you guys. Of course, this is completely subjective, so please do not send any hate. But by all means, if you have to send hate, send it to my Twitter account at RealFNGame. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think is the greatest and what you think should have been on the list. I know we probably missed a few, but we did what we could with all the time that we had. So before we head out it's time for the shameless plug minute or 2 minutes or whatever, because I believe that my co-host has some very wonderful events that are going to be coming up in the great city of Chicago. What's going on?
Yeah, this weekend, September 8th, it's going to be a mini Comic-Con at the International School of Comics. I'll be there. I might be dressed up in costume. I don't know. I don't do that as much anymore. But we'll see if I get in the mood. And then we also have a FAME event, which FAME is the Foundation of Artists Mentored in Entertainment. It's a foundation that supports all the arts in Chicago. They're going to have a nice little Bubbles and Brunch fundraiser to help fund their big gala at the end of at the beginning/end of the season, but beginning of 2019, where they highlight 10 performers, young kids who are trying to make their dreams come true. So we're having some champagne and brunch to help support the arts in Chicago, and that's going to be October 7th. So months away, I'm having some events.
All right. Well, guys, you know how to find us. You know how to communicate with us. And you know how to check out a lot of our great stuff. So for VicTori Belle, I've been Nate the Effing Great. Thank you for enjoying this special musical edition of The Game Changer. And just remember, you guys, we are brave, we are true, we are who we meant to be. This is us. Have a good one, you guys. Enjoy the weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hide away, they say, 'cause we don't want your broken parts. I've learned to be ashamed of all my scars. Run away, they say, no one will love you as you are. But I won't let them break me down to dust. I know that there's a place for us, for we are glorious. When the sharpest words wanna cut me down, I'm gonna send the blood, gonna drown them out. I am brave, I am bruised, I am who I'm meant to be. This is me. Look out, 'cause here I come, and I'm marching on to the beat I drum. I'm not scared to be seen, I make no apologies. This is me. I'm gonna send the blood, gonna drown them out. This is brave, this is bruised, this is who I'm meant to be. This is me.